Right, I'm sure you've seen the shock footage of that Singapore Airlines flight from London to Heathrow that was forced to make an emergency landing yesterday after encountering some severe turbulence around 10 hours into the flight.
The turbulence was so extreme that the plane dropped 6,000 feet in just 3 minutes over the Indian Ocean, causing passengers to fly from their seats and leaving dozens injured.
And tragically, one British passenger lost their life during the incident. But how rare is this type of severe turbulence? We're joined in the studio by pilot Mike Davies, who has 40 years' experience flying long-haul flights, and former cabin crew Charmaine Davies. Lovely to see you both this morning.
Good morning.
Mike, we're all sort of starting to look forward to the idea of getting away on summer holidays. Half-term's just around the corner as well. When you suddenly see footage of that flight, it sort of makes you check yourself. We've all experienced a bit of turbulence.
Indeed.
But that was extraordinary.
That was extraordinary. In 40 years, I've never experienced that kind of turbulence. But it can happen, which is why we warn people all the time, any time you are seated, have your seatbelts fastened. Always a good idea to keep them visible to the crew. That way,
they don't have to wake you. They don't have to disturb you.
Exactly right.
What actually causes turbulence? What is it?
Turbulence is just caused by differences in air currents.
Right, OK.
It's a bit like the sea or a river. You get ripples in the water. Well, the air's exactly the same. It's a fluid, and the aircraft is travelling through the air, and it's being disturbed by those air currents.
I mean, that's a kind of crude graphic that we've put together there, but essentially that's a little bit like it. You're sort of like going over a wave and dropping down the other side of a wave if you're on a ship.
Yes, indeed, but that's showing just pure headwinds. Of course, the winds can come from all directions, vertically and, up and down.
And across. You get big crosswinds as well.
Indeed, yeah. So it can come from all ways.
And how often does it occur? I mean, to that level, it's very rare. Yes.
To some extent.
Yeah.
Just light turbulence. And we can predict roughly where we can expect it. We have what we call significant weather charts, which will draw storms on and also the jet streams, and give us an idea and a clue where there's light turbulence or maybe just a little bit more. And we'll try and avoid as much as we can. Certainly storms, thunderstorms, our weather radar will pick it up. We can look out the window and we'll do our best to steer around it. But the clear air turbulence, you just can't detect. The aircraft can't detect where it is.
And suddenly you're in it.
It's just experience more than anything.
Which is why it's so important to keep your seatbelts on all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. The pre-flight demo is really important to watch, quite honestly. And a lot of passengers, as you know, they don't watch it. They think, well, we've flown before, we don't need to watch it. Well, every plane is different too. Yeah. So you do need to be aware of that. And as you were saying, just keep your seatbelt on at all times. Keep it lightly strapped.
Fastened,
and then you don't have to be disturbed. But it's so important because, as you saw in this incident that happened, people didn't have their seatbelts on. They were immediately lifted into the air, hitting their heads, and it's so dangerous. And I think a lot of people think that cabin crew are just there as waitresses to serve tea and coffee, when in fact the training that cabin crew have to go through is so intense. They have to pass a lot of exams in saving lives, in decompressions, in fires, in hijacking situations before they even set foot on an aeroplane. So tea and coffee is just a nicety, really.
One aspect of the job, a very small
It's the smallest part, really, of the job is serving teas and coffees, but people just assume, oh, well, they're just glorified waitresses. We don't have to listen to them.
But actually, you have all the information. Clearly, the flight landed. I mean, there was a tragedy on board in that one person lost their life, which is understood or believed to have been a heart attack, which is awful for anybody to have to deal with. But the pilots are trained to be able to navigate that sort of turbulence. You said 40 years, you've never seen anything quite as severe.
I've had turbulence, I've had severe turbulence, but not to that extreme where we've had passengers hurting themselves. Most I've had maybe just the odd bruise, but that's items flying around the cabin and hitting people.
What about you, Charmaine?
I have been in situations not quite as extreme as this one. I've been on a flight where one of the crew was pushing the drinks cart out and we experienced a similar situation. We didn't drop quite as far. She went to go and grab the cart and broke both her wrists. Yeah, it's aeroplanes. You know, if you've got children and it's not a playground. They shouldn't be running up and down the aisles. You need to keep aware.
We kind of get that. I think you're right. We get lulled into a false sense of security because we fly quite often, and it's such an experience, an amazing experience.
Or it's
usually
at night time, so you're asleep. So you kind of tend to relax.
Don't forget, you're in an aluminium tube in an environment that can't support life. outside,
Correct.
and it's all artificial inside.
Is there more turbulence now than there used to be?
Well,
It feels like, I mean, this might be the advent of social
on.
media and being able to share
Oh, yes.
stories,
Yeah,
but it
for
does
sure.
feel like we are seeing more
I
examples
think-
of pretty savage turbulence.
I wouldn't say so. Certainly more tropical storms, maybe.
OK.
But we try to avoid those anyway.
I think
the turbulence has always
in December
been
there
there.
was a serious incident where a plane dropped.
Yes.
I think it was back in December. I don't know if it's getting more and more regular or it's just, as you say,
Of course,
social
air
media
traffic's
that's making it more
increased
aware.
as
Yes,
well.
so there's more planes. But we
And
are
it's
seeing more
the media-
extreme weather events, aren't we?
Yeah, but the media's also picking it up
Yes.
and dramatising it. You know, the dramatisation that the aeroplane plunged
Yeah.
6,000 feet. It had a vertical, from what I understand from the trace, of a climb up to about 375 feet above 37,000 feet, and then a drop 100 feet below. The 6,000 feet was a controlled descent at 2,000 feet a minute, is what the pilots were doing to get down, maybe to smooth air and making arrangements for the diversion to Bangkok.
Right. And does turbulence ever bring down a flight altogether? Like, would you make that decision at any stage and go, right, we're going to lower down and then bring the plane?
We try and find the smoothest air.
Right.
Purely for comfort.
Yeah.
Purely for comfort. And we can talk to other pilots, certainly across the Atlantic, or where we've got a chat frequency, if you like.
Right.
And we'll say anybody on track Charlie at 370 or the 37,000 feet, we're getting a little bit of turbulence, and they'll say, well, it's a little bit smoother at 31,000.
Okay.
And we might go and try that.
Yeah.
So you're all communicating all the
I
time.
love
Yeah.
that idea, all these pilots looking after us at the same time.
We want smooth air because we worry about spilling our tea. That
As
is our
long as you've
concern.
got your priorities.
Well, yeah, so it's really annoying to have your tea fly out all over the place.
They get
You've
very
got to
cross,
clear it
right?
up.
They get very cross.
You know what these pilots are like. Charmaine,
Exactly.
what would be your advice if we've got, because undoubtedly we'll have viewers this morning who are nervous flyers that
Yeah.
are going to go and fly somewhere imminently, and they will have seen this and that won't have helped. What's your advice?
It is basically one of the safest forms of travel
Indeed.
still. There's no doubt. There's always a risk in wherever you go, on a bus, on a train, on an aeroplane, there's always a risk. But, as we say, these situations are very, very rare. Turbulence is just a thing that happens, as you say, it's the air currents, etc. The best thing to do, make sure all your luggage is securely stowed, as the cabin crew tell you. Keep your seatbelts on loosely while you're just
Feels like the
reading your
safety
book.
demo suddenly.
And, yeah, and the exits are here.
Oxygen mask will fall down.
But no, please be aware, the cabin crew are there primarily for your safety. If they're doing the pre-flight demo, it only takes 1 or 2 minutes just to watch and pay attention. You've got an 8-hour flight. What else are you going to do than watch the crew? You really...
What happens short haul? Is there less turbulence short haul, like if you were travelling around Europe rather
Then
than...
it depends, where the Singapore Airlines was over the Bay of Bengal this time of year, it's monsoon time. It is well known for having severe weather, severe thunderstorms, clouds and clear air turbulence. It's where the northern and southern hemisphere air mixes, and where it mixes, it all becomes disjointed and becomes turbulent. In Europe, not so much, but then you can get what we call mountain waves. So if you get a strong wind going over the Alps or the Pyrenees, then you've kind of got an airflow like this,
Navigate
which
that,
you're flying through, which is being blown over the mountains.
Right, OK. Well, I feel safe in the knowledge that all the pilots are talking about it and trying to keep us all safe.
Because they're worried about spilling their tea.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, yes.
And don't worry, because all the cabin crew are very highly trained, like I say. So you're in good hands when you fly.
Thank you.
And the crew are there, as our spokespersons as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us this morning.
Lovely to get your thoughts this morning, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.